Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna, everybody. Today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad-Gita as it is, Chapter 3 entitled Karma Yoga, and text number 36. Arjuna Vacha Atakena Prayukto Yam Papam Charati Purushaha Anichan Api Varshneya Balad Iva Niyojitaha. Arjuna Uvacha. Arjuna said, Atta, then, Kena, by what? Prayuktaha, impelled, I am, one, Papam, sins, Charity, does, Purushaha, a man, Anichan, without desiring, Api, although, Varshneya, O descendant of Vrishni, Balat, by force, Iva, as if, Niyojitaha, engaged. Arjuna said, O descendant of Vrishni, by what is one impelled to sinful acts, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force? Please repeat. Arjuna said, O descendant of Vrishni, by what is one impelled to sinful acts, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force? Purport. A living entity, as part and parcel of the Supreme, is originally spiritual, pure, and free from all material contaminations. Therefore, by nature, he is not subject to the sins of the material world. But when he is in contact with the material nature, he acts in many sinful ways without hesitation, and sometimes even against his will. As such, Arjuna's question to Krishna is very sanguine as to the perverted nature of the living entities. Although the living entity sometimes does not want to act in sin, he is still forced to act. Sinful actions are not, however, impelled from the supersoul within, but are due to another cause, as the Lord explains in the next verse. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurun Manitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandayaham Sri Guruho Sri Yuta Parakamalam Sri Guruna Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrijatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Visakan Vitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namustate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Arjuna Uvacha, Atakena Prayukto Yam, Papam Chariti Purushaha, Anicham Api Varshnaya, Balad Eva Niyojitaha. So this verse today is the start of a new section in the Bhagavad-Gita. Because Krishna had just been describing how one should regulate one's activities to control attachment and aversion. And one should do this by engaging in one's prescribed duties. So now Arjuna brings up a question, which is explained by our acharyas and given in Surrender Unto Me by Burijan Prabhu. The thought between Arjuna's question. So Arjuna has just heard that it is necessary to control attachment and aversion by engaging in one's duty. And so the thought behind Arjuna, according to the acharyas, is that, okay, so Arjuna has accepted this. And Arjuna, like many people, like we become inspired. We hear some good advice and we become inspired to follow it. And we say, okay, from now onward, I will do my prescribed duty, and I will control my attachments, and I will not engage in sinful acts. So now Arjuna's question is, how come that inspiration doesn't work? How come the inspiration doesn't last? We fall back to our old habits. So Prabhupada says this question is very sanguine. It's a very relevant question. Because depending on how we see the term sinful, basically anything which is not for Krishna's pleasure is defined as sinful. In the same way that we are part and parcel of Krishna, our job is to serve Krishna. The same way our hand is part and parcel of us, its role is to serve us. So it's actually unthinkable that the hand will not serve the body. What you want to do, you expect your hand to do. Of course, if it's diseased, sometimes it doesn't. But generally, the hand automatically will serve the body. And so generally, the servant, the part and parcel of Krishna, its role is to serve Krishna. So it's very... so by that understanding, anything which is not serving Krishna is in a way sinful. But beyond that, in the material world, Krishna has just described prescribed duties. Duties according to the predisposition of the body one is born into. So in a human body, we're born into different modes. The modes of nature control us. So the prescribed duties are there according to these modes of nature, and they are there to regulate our sense control. So the answer, Prabhupada hints at the end of the purport. We need to go to the next verse for the answer. The answer, the Supreme Personality Godhead said, it is lust only, Arjuna, which is born of contact with the material mode of passion and later transformed into wrath, which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world. So Krishna is replying that it is lust. And this lust is born of contact with the mode of passion. Now, in this section here, Krishna is giving us a little more detail on lust and how to find it and how to control it. He'd already described this process in the end of the second chapter. In verse 262, Jayato Vishayan Pumsa, Sangas Teshu Pajayate, Sangat Sangat Jayate Kama, Kamat Krodha Bijayate. When contemplating the objects of the senses, so Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsa, when a person contemplates the objects of the senses, Sangas Teshu Pajayate, a person will develop attachment for them. Sangat Sanjayate Kama, and from such attachment, Kama, lust will develop. Kamat Krodha Bijayate, and from lust, anger arises. So the same thing has been repeated by Krishna here, that from this engagement with the mode of passion, engaging oneself in thinking about the objects of the senses, this lust develops. And from lust, when lust or desire for enjoyment is frustrated, then wrath or anger naturally develops. So sinful activities were some of the thoughts that Arjuna was having back in the first chapter when he was explaining to Krishna why he didn't want to fight. In 144, Arjuna had said, as one of his arguments, he's standing before right in the middle of the battlefield before the fight. One of his arguments, alas, how strange it is that we are preparing to commit greatly sinful acts. So he's concerned about this, deciding what is sinful and what is not. He was thinking at that stage that killing his family members is sinful, because it's described in part of the Vedas that killing of family members is sinful. Krishna, however, counters him in 233. Krishna says, if, however, you do not perform your religious duty of fighting, then you will certainly incur sins for neglecting your duties and thus lose your reputation as a fighter. So Krishna is replying, actually it's not by not killing your family members that you incur sin, it's by not doing your duty that you incur sin. So Krishna's turned it around. So that makes it difficult for us, unless we're extremely expert. How do we know what is actually sinful and what is not? And then continuing on in 238, he says, do thou fight for the sake of fighting, without considering happiness or distress, loss or gain, victory or defeat, and by so doing you will never incur sin. So by fighting, by killing your family members on the battlefield, because you are doing it as a matter of duty, you do not incur sin. In fact, he goes on to say you will attain the heavenly kingdom. So Arjuna is concerned about the matter of sin, but he's not able to properly determine what is the cause of sin and what actually is a sinful reaction. So this section that we're studying now goes from this verse 36, through to verse 43, which I think is the end of the chapter. And the focus of the learning in this is about lust. And Krishna is describing lust very forcefully. He says this is the all-devouring sinful enemy. It's very powerful sinful enemy. Prabhupada describes in the purport later on that when you know you have an enemy, this lust is an enemy, then Krishna goes on to describe where you'll find this enemy. And once you know where to find this enemy, then you have a way to try and control it. So that's what this section is all about. Know your enemy is lust. Find out where to find your enemy and find out how to kill your enemy. The two ways that Krishna is giving to curb lust is by following the regulations of religious life, means controlling your senses by regulative duties, and by cultivating knowledge of the soul's real nature. So today's purport describes very succinctly the soul's original nature is part and parcel of the Supreme, and he is originally spiritual, pure, and free from contamination. Therefore he is not subject to sins, but he has a perverted nature. When in contact with the material nature, he may act in sinful ways without hesitation, and sometimes even without his will. So at the end of the purport, Srila Prabhupada is saying it's not the super soul that makes us act in these sinful ways. We have to be aware of that and not try and blame it. We have different ways of understanding the super soul. We can call it intuition, we can call it providence, we can call it many things. But we have to understand how this sinful desire comes about and how to control it. So, taking from the Nectar of Devotion, in the first chapter of the Nectar of Devotion is described these 6 qualities of pure devotional service. And the very first of these qualities is relief from material distress, which is about relief from sinful reactions. So the description here is quite detailed. How we can understand where this lust comes from and why we can't control it, and how we will ultimately control it. So generally one commits sinful activities due to ignorance. We don't know our constitutional position. We don't know what's right, the right thing to do is. We don't know what the wrong thing is to do is. We don't know who to listen to find out the truth. But ignorance is no excuse. You still get the sinful reactions. Same way, maybe not in India, but if you break the traffic rules, if you drive on the wrong side of the road, ignorance will not save you. The policeman will stop you and he will say, it's your responsibility to know the rules. You will still get punished. And there's a verse from the Padma Puran that is described quite thoroughly in the Nectar of Devotion. It is stated in the Padma Puran that there are 4 kinds of effects due to sinful activities, which are listed as follows. The effect which is not yet fructified, the effect which is lying as seed, the effect which is already mature, and the effect which is almost mature. It is also stated that all these 4 effects become immediately vanquished for those who surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, and become and is engaged in devotional service, full of Krishna consciousness. So we'll just read a little more of that to try and understand these text. Okay. Devotion 1. Okay, so we try and understand what they are. The effects that are described as almost mature refer to the distress from which one is suffering at present, and the effects lying as seed are in the core of the heart, where there is a certain stock of sinful desires which are like seeds. The Sanskrit word kutam means that they are almost ready to produce the seed or the effect of the seed. An immature effect refers to the case where the seedling has not begun. So he gives an analogy. When one catches a disease, it is often hard to find the source of the disease, the cause, where it originated and how it's maturing. This is because the disease does not come about all of a sudden. It cultivates itself within the body. So you don't know exactly when it started or what it started off. So in the medical field, a doctor may give you an antibiotic or a vaccination to try and protect you from the cause of the disease. Now, if we go to Srimad Bhagavatam, at the beginning of the 6th chapter, 6th canto, 6:1-10. So in the beginning, at the end of the 5th chapter, Sukadeva Goswami had described all the hellish planets. So Parikshit Maharaj, being a very great Vaishnava, was very concerned for the welfare of everybody in the material world. He wanted to know how people can be saved from going to the hellish planets. So he asked a question of Sukadeva Goswami. Sukadeva Goswami, in the beginning, was testing his disciple. So he answered that if one commits sinful activities, one has to undergo atonement or prayaschita. And Parikshit Maharaj says, well, I think this is not true, because people undergo so much of prayaschita atonement. Even Prabhupada likes to give the example, in the Christian church, some people will go to confession every Sunday, and then straight away on Monday they go around and commit the same offences again. And then on Sunday they will go and ask for forgiveness again. And they think they continue eternally like that. We know, of course, that it is the 7th offence against the holy name, to continue to commit sinful activities on the strength of the chanting of the holy name. Parikshit Maharaj said, one may know that sinful activities is injurious to him, because he actually sees a criminal being punished by the government and rebuked by people in general, and because he hears from scriptures and learned scholars that one is thrown into hellish conditions in the next life for committing sinful acts. Nevertheless, in spite of such knowledge, one is forced to commit sins again and again, even after performing acts of atonement. What then is the value of atonement? So like in the current time, people will go into jail for committing offences, and they come out of jail and they will commit more offences and be put back into jail. So Prabhupada is described that the person who is the most intelligent, he will hear something is wrong, he will hear what to do, and he will do it. So he understands, the law is this, I will follow the law. The next most intelligent person, he hears the law, but he still doesn't understand it. But then he sees someone else being punished, and then he understands, okay, if I try to do this, I'll be punished like this person. And the next person is the one who hears it and sees it and still doesn't understand. But when he becomes punished, he finally realizes, oh, okay, I'm doing the wrong thing. But we're talking about the fourth class, the ones who can hear it, they can see it happening, they can experience it, and they will still go and commit the same events again and again. So he gives a verse that Prabhupada quotes very often. Kvachin nivartate bhadrat, kvachit charati tat punaha, prayashchitam atopartam, manye kunjara sochavad. So very often Prabhupada will use the words kunjara sochavad. The translation, sometimes one who is very alert so as not to commit sinful acts is victimized by sinful life again. I therefore consider this process of repeated sinning and atoning to be useless. It is like the bathing of an elephant, for an elephant cleanses itself by taking a full bath, he comes out onto the bank and he throws dust all over himself. So this is a very good analogy that we atone for sinful activities. We confess, we pray that we won't do it again, but immediately we go and do it again. Like the elephant, when he comes out of the river or the pond, he will just throw dirt over himself. So, in response, Sukadeva Goswami gives another analogy, which is also very nice to understand. These sins are like the dried leaves and creepers beneath a bamboo tree, which may be burned by fire, although their roots remain to grow at the first opportunity. So, if you have any experience of bamboo, it's like that. You can burn down a whole bamboo plantation, but the roots, as soon as it rains, the roots will come up again and the bamboo will come again. It's very hard to kill bamboo. You can even try and dig it out and some root will remain in the ground. You can burn it and it will remain in the ground. So this sinful desire, this seed is like that. We undergo so much of atonement for our sinful activities. We may go to jail. We may do some reparation. Whoever we've hurt, we may go and apologize, we may pay them back, we may go and work for them. We may do so many things, and we may have good intentions of not committing sinful activities. But the seed is in the heart. In text 6.1.15, Shukadeva Goswami says, only a rare person who has adopted complete unalloyed devotional service to Krishna can uproot the weeds of sinful actions with no possibility that they will revive. He can do this simply by discharging devotional service, as the sun can immediately dissipate fog by its rays. So this is another analogy. He's describing this sinful activity as being like fog. So when we have fog, we can have clouds, and clouds can hang around for quite some time. But if we have fog, it's generally low-lying and it's generally not very dense. So when the sun comes up, it will burn off the fog quite quickly. So in the same way, when we engage in devotional service, this sinful reactions can be burnt off quite quickly. And yeah. So there are many verses that are quoted both in Nectar of Devotion and in this purport, which describe the power of devotional service. So, Srila Prabhupada says, speculators who undergo great labor to gain a meticulous understanding of the material world by distinguishing between sinful and pious activities, who are not situated in devotional service, are still prone to material activities. They fall down again and begin engaged in material activities. Prabhupada would always give the example of the Mayavadi sannyasis. They try and negate the material activities and say, not this, this is not me. But when they come to the point of not being anything, they're not satisfied. So they come and do material philanthropic activities, like open wells in the villages and open hospitals and open schools and things like that. So they come back into material activities. So when one is in that type of material activity, it's by attachment. one wants to get a good name for doing good works. So it's not purely unattached duties. So in the previous verse it said that hardly a single person will come to this devotional service. And he quotes in the Bhagavad-Gita 7.3, Manusyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatiti siddhaye yatatam api siddhanam kaschin mam veti tatvataha. Of many thousands among men, one may endeavor for perfection, and of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. So although this process of devotional service is described as so easy, like when the sun rises, the fog immediately dissipates. So the process works very nicely, but hardly a single person can actually understand the process and engage in it, though it's such a simple process. The definition of a pure devotional service is given in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Anya Bilasata Shunyam, Jnana Karma Dhyanavritam, Anukulyana Krishnanu Shilanam Bhaktir Uttama. So one should render transcendental loving service to the Supreme Lord Krishna favorably and without desire for material profit and gain from fruitive activities or philosophical speculation. This is called pure devotional service. So this pure devotional service, as we said, removes all material distress. This is one of the first qualities I quoted from Nectar of Devotion, qualities of devotional service. It's called in Sanskrit Kleshagni Subhada. It relieves from all distress. And this purport again describes these different stages of sinful activities. Non-devotees must undergo material hardships because they are prone to commit sinful fruitive activities. The desire to commit sinful actions continues in their hearts due to ignorance. We discussed that before. Ignorance helps the sinful reactions to continue. Sinful actions are divided into three categories: Pataka, Mahapataka, and Atipataka. And also into two divisions, Prarabdha and Aprarabdha. So these are coming back to Nectar of Devotion. Prarabdha refers to sinful reactions which one is suffering at present, and Aprarabdha refers to the potential suffering. When the seeds, bij, of sinful actions are not yet fructified, the reactions are called Aprarabdha. When the seeds of sinful action are unseen, but they are unlimited, and no one can trace when they were first planted. Because of prarabdha sinful reactions that have already fructified, one is seen to take birth in a low family, to be suffering from other miseries. So these aprarabdha sinful desires are described here to be unlimited, because we don't know for how many unlimited millions and millions of lifetimes we've been collecting these sinful activities. They don't necessarily fructify immediately. And the prarabdha sinful reactions are the ones that create our material body we've got now, the sufferings we're suffering now, and the modes of nature we're undergoing now. So how this devotional service can destroy even the seed is described in many places. Some of them are quoted here. One from Srimad Bhagavatam 11:14-19. Krishna tells Uddhava, Yatagni susamamridachahi karotye damsi basmasat tata mad vishaya bhaktir uddhavaimsi krishnasataha. My dear Uddhava, devotional service in relationship with me is like a blazing fire that can burn to ashes all fuel of sinful activities supplied to it. So this is an important verse. It's also quoted in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, because it explains how even the seed of sinful reaction is destroyed. In third canto, Lord Kapila instructs his mother Devahuti, Yan namadeya shravananu kirtanad, yad bhavanad yad smaranad abhikachit, svadopi sadya shravanaya kalpate, kuta punaste bhagavan nudarshanad. My dear Lord, even if a person is born in a family of dog-eaters, hears and repeats the chanting of your glories, offers respects to you and remembers you, he is immediately greater than a brahmana, and is therefore eligible to perform sacrifices. Then what is to be said of one who has seen you directly? So this verse is quite shocking for the smarter brahmanas. A person who is born in a family of dog-eaters can become qualified to perform sacrifices. Now, of course, the people in the Hindu Parishad and everywhere like that will object to that. And if you read the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the commentary, the 2-volume commentary, you can find where it's described by Jiva Goswami that actually, although people who are born in a family of dog-eaters, they will not actually come to perform sacrifice. Although they're qualified to, they will not try and disturb the society. So they will not do it, but they are qualified to do it, because this process of devotional service is so strong that it immediately gets rid of all prarabdha and aprarabdha sinful reactions. Of course, we still have a body, and the body still comes with the modes of nature. That doesn't go away. So this is part of the reason why they don't immediately claim great qualifications. To properly come by the Vedic process to the level of Brahmana, one has to begin with the Garbhadhana samskara before one is even conceived. So when one is born in a Mlecha family, like myself, we didn't have that. And in this modern age of Kali, hardly anyone has engaged in this Garbhadhana samskara before conceiving children. Of course, now the devotees try to. Prabhupada gave a very simple samskara process, is to chant 50 rounds a day, which will keep our minds fixed in devotional service and fixed our minds in the purpose of conceiving children, which is to bring this life into our family in order to relieve it from the samsara of repeated birth and death. So of course Prabhupada created quite some controversy when he brought these Western devotees back to India wearing Brahman threads and carrying sannyas dandas. He caused quite a stir. But he was a very bold preacher in doing this, and he did it with a very intent purpose in mind. He really wanted to show these Indian people who were so busy following the Western culture. Because as soon, somebody said in a little joking way, when the British were in India, they were here for 300 years and they couldn't change the culture. But all the Americans did was send their TV, and the Indians are running after the American culture. So the Indians have got this idea that American is better. So Prabhupada, with a very distinct purpose, brought all these American Vaishnavas back to India to show them that yes, these Americans, they come from a wealthy country. Their families are quite wealthy, and middle class, upper class families. And these people were so disgusted by this life, by having this opulence and finding it not satisfying, that they've rejected it and become hippies and engaging in all sorts of sinful activities. So, and I have taken this simple process of devotional service and given it to them, and they've accepted it. They've naturally accepted it, and they've taken up devotional service. So Prabhupada has brought them to show the Indian people that this process of Krishna consciousness is so powerful that it can change anybody. Okay. Ah, yes. So in this 6th canto, this beginning of this story, then Shukadev Goswami will continue to give the example of a Jamal, because a Jamal is the example. A Jamal was born in a Brahmana family. He actually had the samskaras. He was serving his guru, but he was not perfect in his devotional service, because he still had this seed in his heart. Described by the acharyas that he saw 2 low-class people engaging in activities of a sensual nature, and he became attracted. So he became attracted, why? Because he had the seed in the heart. The acharyas also say why it has taken so long to fructify is because he was married. He had a very chaste and faithful wife. So his chaste and faithful wife had protected him by serving him nicely, and by being very chaste and faithful to him. She had protected him from the sinful desire that was in his heart. But one day he was out in the forest collecting items for his spiritual master to perform his religious duties, and he saw this couple, and he lost control. He immediately lost control. So this is how powerful this kutum, this bij in the heart is. It can drag us away if we're not completely fixed. But of course the joy of the story of Ajamal is that he was saved. So from that age of a young Brahmana, he followed this prostitute, he married this prostitute. He then engaged in all kinds of sinful activities to satisfy this prostitute and give her what she wanted. He had many, many children. At an old age, he was still completely absorbed in this prostitute and his children. But by some divine arrangement, he named his last child, I think was his 10th child, Narayan. So when he came to the point of death, he was thinking only of his child. He wasn't thinking of Narayan. But when he saw the Yamadutas come, because he was so sinful, the Yamadutas come to get him at the point of death. And when he saw them come, he was afraid. And he automatically called out for his young son, who was about 2 or 3 years old, I think. He says, Narayan, Narayan. And because of that, then the Vishnu Dutas came and said, you can't take this man. So that just by calling out the words Narayan, with no other devotional service, since he was a young man, just by those words, he attracted the Vishnu Dutas to save him. So it's described that we know that our 7th offense against the chanting of the holy name is to commit sinful activities on the strength of the chanting of the holy name. But the acharyas say that Ajamal wasn't doing that. He was continuing to commit sinful activities, and he was calling out Narayan, but he wasn't expecting to be purified. He was simply calling for his son. So it's what called negligently calling. So negligently chanting the holy names without meaning to, like Ajamal calling the name of Narayan, like the Muslims who sometimes say Haram when they are afraid of something or when they're angry, or even a broken syllable. Any way that you chant the holy names, they will have some effect. So this was not deliberately sinning on the strength of the holy name. He was simply negligently calling for his son, but he was calling the Lord's name. And the whole discussion ensues between the Yamadutas and the Vishnu Dutas, and then between the Yamadutas who went back to Yamaraj and said, hey Yamaraj, how come somebody stopped us doing our duty? We thought you were the boss. We thought you were the one who determined who was sinful and who was pious. How come someone stopped us from doing our duty? And then Yamaraj explains, well, actually, I'm just working for the Supreme Lord. He's the boss. And if somebody's devoted to him, you should stay well away from them. If you wear the Kanti Mala around your neck, if you wear the Vaishnav Tilak, then it's said that the Yamadutas will never even come to you. Now, there was one other verse. Oh, I think it was 19. 18, 19. Okay. Oh, there's a nice another nice example here about non-devotees, how they can't be purified by their acts of atonement. It says, if you have a pot that has contained liquor, and even if you take that pot and you wash it, still the smell of the liquor remains. And you can't get pure water from that pot. You can wash it so many times, but still that smell remains, like if you have a wine cask or a wine barrel or a liquor barrel. It can't be cleaned. So in the same way, unless the name of the Lord comes and purifies your heart, you actually can't get rid of that last smell of sinful desire. So any other process, karma kanda or jnana kanda, will not actually remove the sinful beach from the heart. He quotes Narottam Das Thakur, who says, Karma kanda jnana kanda kevala vishara bandha. Narottam Das Thakur is comparing karma kanda and jnana kanda to pots of poison, because there's no way that you can actually attain success. And the next verse, the last verse I want to read. No. About the devotees. Although not having fully realized Krishna, persons who have even once surrendered completely unto his lotus feet, and who have become attracted to his name, form, qualities and pastimes, are completely freed from all sinful reactions, for they have thus accepted the true method of atonement. Even in dreams, such surrendered souls do not see Yamaraj or his order carriers, who are equipped with ropes to bind the sinful. So even in dreams, anyone who becomes even attached to devotional service, even though not pure, will not see the followers of Yamaraj. So we can understand this also in Bhagavad-Gita, the 2nd chapter, verse 59, how this process actually works in a simple way. Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehinaha raso varajam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate. Though the embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, the taste for sense object remains. But ceasing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste, he is fixed in consciousness. So because we engage in devotional service, the higher taste replaces all our desires for anything lower. There's also a verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhakti Parishanu Vivrikta, that how devotional service is like when you're hungry and you start eating. 3 things happen when you start eating and you're hungry. Your hunger becomes satisfied. You get satisfaction from eating the nice food, and you get nourishment. So in the same way, in devotional service, it has the same 3 effects. It gets rid of your experience of miseries in the material world. It gives you the satisfaction of the joy of being engaged in devotional service. And it gives you this positive engagement where you don't fall down again. Okay, so now we'll stop here and ask for comments or questions, corrections. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Just like Prabhupada just giving the purport that we are all spirit soul.
Yeah.
So when we are all spirit soul, we are all pure state. So when Prabhupada went to West and he was among the young children, you were all young, 20 years, 25 years. So Prabhupada was not attracted to any other for the sex or any lust, because he was a spirit soul. So anyone who is spirit soul, he cannot be attracted by the lust for anyone.
We're all spirit souls.
Yeah, all spirit souls.
Some of us are covered.
Yeah, so Prabhupada said we are all pure spirit soul. The material world cannot contact you, cannot disturb you.
So we're all spirit soul, but if we become purified of this material covering by devotional service, but we can't be overconfident, because remember the story of Bharat Maharaj. So Bharat Maharaj he's a very elevated Vaishnava. He was so renounced that even at quite a young age he renounced his family, he renounced his kingdom, his palaces, all his opulence. And he went to the forest to engage in religious activities, in purification. But he became attracted to try and help a young deer. So that attraction made him fall down again. So we can't be overconfident. Like Prabhupada also gave the example. Prabhupada was standing in front of the deities and he was praying very seriously. And later on, the devotees asked him, so what were you praying for? And Prabhupada says, I'm praying that I will never fall prey to Maya. And the devotee said, but Prabhupada, you just said in class that you can never fall prey to Maya. And he says, yes, that's right, because I'm always praying that I won't. So we have to be always alert and not take for granted that we've come to a liberated stage.
We should be always alert, but the Prabhupada example is that he was not attracted to anyone. He was just only in Krishna's consciousness. Similar way, if we are totally observed ourselves in Krishna, then we will be not attracted to any young person. So many devotees of Prabhupada, they went for preaching and they were attracted for the movements because their purity was not there. Their total observation was not there in Krishna consciousness. That's why they fall down from the sannyas ashram or some other place.
Yes, but they followed Srila Prabhupada's instructions and they very sincerely helped him to spread Krishna consciousness. So for this, they have Prabhupada's blessings. And there are some very wonderful stories about how some of them, even though they fell down, they achieved Srila Prabhupada's blessings. I think one was called Sudama, I might have the name wrong, who was preaching in Japan or somewhere like that. He completely fell away from devotional service. But Prabhupada had promised, if you go to Japan for preaching, I will take you back to Godhead. And later on, after he left his body, his sister came in contact with the devotees and said that, yeah, he wasn't engaged, he wasn't doing any devotional service, he wasn't chanting, he wasn't doing anything. But at the moment he left his body, he sat up and he said, Prabhupada, you've come. So, yes, he fell down. But these devotees who Prabhupada found in very poor condition, and they very quickly became attracted to him out of love. And that love enabled them to be obedient to him. Even though they didn't have that ability like we're trying to learn. Prabhupada trying to teach us that we should at least aim for the mode of goodness, because it gives us something to fall back on if we don't become perfect. So at that early stage, they didn't have that. And still some of us don't have that. But we're aiming for that. We're aiming to engage in our prescribed duties, follow the regulative principles, and try and come to the mode of goodness, so that when we fall from transcendence, because we're not perfect, we will at least have some support and we won't completely fall down. But these devotees were so enthusiastic, and they didn't have that backing at that stage, but still nevertheless they were very enthusiastic following Srila Prabhupada's instructions. And we have to thank Prabhupada established 108 temples in 12 years. In 1 year alone, I think 71 to 72, he established 32 temples in 1 year. He did that with the help of all these devotees. So we're not going to criticize them. We're not going to say they fell down, they're useless, because they served Prabhupada very nicely. And Prabhupada appreciated service. He didn't look for criticism. Even people fell down, if he heard from them, he wanted them to come back. He didn't want to argue, why have you done this, why have you done that? He wanted them to simply come back and engage in devotional service. And this is assured also in the Bhagavad-Gita, in 9th chapter. If one engages in devotional service, if one can come and be fixed in devotional service, even if one has committed a sinful activity, he still becomes a sadhu, if he can remain fixed in devotional service. Because Krishna will do this purification from within. But we've had a lot of time getting impure, so it will take some time for purification. Thank you.
One more question.
Ha, Prabhu.
You were speaking about just like elephant taking bath and throwing the dust on himself. So similarly in the material world we are chanting Hare Krishna Mantra and doing everything. And sometimes we are attracted to so many other objects. So it's just like same thing as we are doing taking bath and throwing the dust on ourselves.
Yeah, that's why Arjuna is asking this question. Why are we impelled to sinful acts, even though we know better? We know better. Sometimes. One of the prayers for when you complete deity worships, agyanad atavagyanad, knowingly or unknowingly, I commit mistakes. Sometimes knowingly. We serve the deities, we think, oh, I haven't got time for that, let me just take a shortcut today. Oh, I don't have time to clean the plates properly, let me just do a quick job. We do knowingly, we don't do what we're supposed to do. So we pray for forgiveness. And in that way, at least we relieve our spiritual master of our offenses. Because otherwise our spiritual master gets our offenses. He takes out sinful reactions at the time of initiation. And he will also suffer if we commit sinful activities after initiation. So we should be very careful. At least we make some mistake, we should pray for forgiveness, repentance. Krishna also tells Uddhava in the 11th canto, he says, my devotees, they sometimes fall down to sense gratification. But one thing, they know it's not going to lead them to a successful life. And second thing, they repent it and they sincerely try not to do it again. So we all make mistakes. We have to develop this sincere attitude and this intense desire for devotional service. That's partly mostly our responsibility to desire. Many other things can happen we can't have control over, but we have to try very hard to be sincerely desirous of success in devotional service.
So knowingly something we are doing wrong, and still we are continuing to chant and see that how we can avoid those things. But still that bad habits and are not living, just like the example of a liquor pot. Similarly, we are doing so many things, so many times we are trying to control ourselves, and same thing again and again is our habitual that cannot come out from there.
Yeah, so that's our responsibility. If we chant our rounds mechanically, without pronouncing properly, without hearing properly, then it will not have the same result as if we chant carefully and listen carefully. We can have that determination to do our best. And if we fall away from that determination, that's our responsibility. The Acharyas have given us so much, like Nectar of Instruction has said, Utsahan Nishtayat Dayat, determination, enthusiasm and patience. We have some responsibility to try and cultivate these.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Anything else from anyone? Take this for the radio listeners.
What you said about your Yamadutas and the Vishnu,
Ha.
we will not accept that we won't see the Yamadutas if we're chanting and we're taking Krishna's name sincerely.
Yes.
Then we should see the Vishnu Dutas. But all of us are not pure enough to go back to the spiritual world.
No, and even in the story of Ajamal, he didn't immediately go back to the spiritual world either. The Vishnu Dutas just sent the Yamadutas away, and then Ajamal had a chance, he went to Haridwar and continued his spiritual life. So he did not immediately go back to Godhead either. He went then to take up devotional service again in Haridwar, and some years later, then the Vishnu Dutas came again to take him back to the spiritual world. So the protection is there. And of course, we know from the Bhagavad-Gita, there is no loss or diminution. If we don't perfect in one life, it will continue in the next life. It's also in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad-Gita, where Arjuna asks the questions. What happens if we give up material life, we take up spiritual life, but we don't become perfect? Do we lose everything? And Krishna replies with all these things, no, you will never, declare it boldly, my devotee never perishes. And he says you will come again in a family, and you'll be given an opportunity to come to devotional service again. Coming to devotional service, even partway, will give us a human life. It will give us a better chance to come back to devotional service later. But yes, still we have to develop that determination and sincerity. But then the Yamadutas are no longer involved. We get the chance of another birth, but it becomes under the control of Krishna. Thank you. Or Srila Prabhupada, who knows? Maybe he helps us. Thank you. Thank you. Anything else? Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.